Ant-Man and the Wasp was released July 6, 2018, directed once again by Peyton Reed, and this is of course a continuation of the story from the original Ant-Man that came out in 2015. Ant-Man and the Wasp takes place 2 years after the events of Civil War, showing that Scott Lang, played by Paul Rudd, has been under house arrest, and at the time we're placed with him, he's on his final 3 days before he's released to the public. While Scott has been away, Hope van Dyne, played by Evangeline Lilly, and her father Hank Pym, played by Michael Douglas, have been building a portal into the quantum realm, which if you'll recall from the first film is where Scott shrinks through the atoms and molecules and is only able to escape because he has the growth discs on him. Basically, after the machine is turned on, Scott begins having vivid dreamlike states where he can see through Janet van Dyne's eyes, played by Michelle Pfeiffer, who's of course Hank's wife and Hope's mother, who's been lost inside the quantum realm for over 30 years and has been presumed dead up until this point. Scott is kidnapped by Hope and brought to their lab for questioning and further evaluation, even though after Civil War, Hope and Hank have a huge distaste for Scott, because he stole Hank's suit and went to Germany to fight alongside Captain America against the Avengers. Frankly, I'd be pretty upset as well. Hank and Hope ask Scott to come along with them to pick up their last piece of tech required to finish building the teleporter. However, the person they've been buying from, named Sonny Birch, played by Walton Goggins, reveals he's found her full name and what she's truly using the tech for. And after a long exposition scene, Hope throws on her Wasp costume and annihilates everyone in the room except for Sonny, however. Right as she's leaving, she's stopped by a character in white who can phase directly through objects named Ghost, or Ava, played by John-Kamen, who plays the real supervillain of the movie. And her entire motive for wanting to stop Ant-Man and the Wasp is that she also wants the teleporter, so she can absorb the strength left over from Janet in the quantum realm. And of course, with our three heroes attempting to save her from the quantum realm, it changes the stakes quite a bit. However, Ghost is truly one of the weakest, boring characters by far in the MCU, and after an hour, her phasing body started to give me a serious headache. That shit wasn't cool or fun to look at, it was just miserable. Like the same feeling I get when I watch a 3D movie, just sickening. Throughout this film, there's a whole extra plot line where all these characters are chasing down a shrunken version of their laboratory to have access to all their available technology. To be honest, this movie feels a lot like It's a Mad, 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 Mad World, but to be fair, the action in this movie is as fun as the original Ant-Man, so it is very visually pleasing in that regard. I think my biggest problem with the film as a whole lies in Scott Lang's character. In the original Ant-Man, Scott is shown to be extremely crafty and smart, breaking into safes and houses and even being able to grasp the Ant-Man suit and successfully take out the Falcon within his first outing. Essentially, Scott was a funny character, but also one that's very witty and smart. However, in this film, he's made out to be the child of the team. Hope is the main hero. She contributes by far the most to every battle, while Scott is honestly just there for comedic relief, which turned me off quite a bit as I literally have a tattoo of Ant-Man on my arm. I get this 2018 feminist lifestyle we're all forced to live in, but you literally changed your own character. He simply isn't supposed to act the way you've written him in this film, and it may be a total turnoff in later entries inside the MCU at this point. Honestly, as far as plot goes, the rest of the movie is as generic and played out as you could possibly expect. The bad guys get their hands on the lab and all the Pym tech and end up not using it properly or simply never using it at all, looking at Sonny Birch, aka the most terrible, useless, one-off character in the entire movie. The heroes get their technology back, save their mom, have a long, heartfelt discussion with Ghost realizing she's just in pain and needs their help, save the day, and Scott gets released from house arrest, successfully not being caught, even though he was out and about where all of this was going down for 3 whole days. But I'll still give credit where credit is due, and say I love the Marvel movies that keep things lower scale, such as the original Ant-Man or Deadpool, because the story feels so much more contained and simpler to follow, and this movie is no exception to that. It ties to the bigger picture in the MCU, but could be watched just as easily as a standalone film as well. Other positives I can mention are Michael Peña, of course, reprising his role as Luis, and even though the character is so one-note with his goofy gibberish, I still find him to be one of the best characters in the MCU, and especially within these two films, this one specifically. I find this movie, again, very visually stimulating, similar to Guardians of the Galaxy. There's lots of vivid, bright colors, and even when there's street fights going on, the use of colors throughout the landscape complement the film exceptionally. However, on a similar note, I thought the entire score, just every last song, was just terrible, and it took me out of the film most of the time. Overall, Ant-Man and the Wasp is nowhere near a bad film, and in fact, just like a majority of the other MCU films, I highly recommend it. However, it's nowhere near the excellence of the original Ant-Man, or really any of the other recent MCU entries like Doctor Strange or Guardians Volume 2. This one in a lot of ways dropped the ball big time, and as a huge fan of the character, it was quite disappointing to see, and even sadder to have to write out all the flaws I found. This film's biggest positive is that it's so lighthearted that the entire movie is a comedy. There's no suspense or drama because it's always interrupted by a joke or some random one-off quip, which led to a lot of laughter from the crowd in the theater, to be honest. However, I could definitely see how that'd be a negative as well, because the stakes are so incredibly low that there's no need to care whatsoever. But again, that is sort of the point. And for all these reasons and more, I'm giving 2018's Ant-Man and the Wasp a 7 out of 10. C. One final thing I'd like to mention is the after credits scene, which is a huge spoiler, so if you don't want to know what that is, then click off the video in 3, 2, 1. Okay, still here? Great. So Scott enters into the quantum realm and establishes contact with Hope, Hank, and Janet from the other side. However, when he's asked to be brought back onto the surface, it cuts back to the three on land, fading away into ashes, obviously referencing the ending of Infinity War, and I honestly expected that to be the actual ending of the film, so props for making the movie still able to stand on its own, because had you just blown them up at the end, an audience member who hadn't seen Infinity War yet would be like, what? But also, the advertising mentioned, the ending will blow your mind. However, it's really this scene that they meant, because the ending of the actual film is just average, general wrapping up stuff, so did it really blow my mind, or was that just kind of like false?